I want you to just take a second and imagine something for me.
Okay, I'm with you.
Just picture a number in your head.
Right.
I want you to specifically picture the number 40 million.
Wow. Okay, that is a massive number.
Right. Now think about an album, a piece of recorded music, so incredibly massive, so just universally undeniable that it physically moves over 40 million copies worldwide.
It's almost hard to wrap your head around that scale, honestly.
It really is. I mean, we are talking about the best-selling country album of all time.
Yeah.
We are talking about the best-selling album by a Canadian artist ever.
Absolutely.
And if we zoom all the way out, to the entire history of recorded music across every genre and every era, it is the 8th best-selling album in human history.
It is just a staggering level of commercial dominance. That is the kind of cultural footprint that most artists, even the absolute legends of the industry, can only dream of brushing up against.
Exactly.
It is very rarefied air.
It really is. And, well, that is exactly what we are focusing on today. Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Glad to be here.
Our topic today is Shania Twain's 1997 absolute masterpiece, Come On Over.
A phenomenal record.
It really is. And we have gathered a massive stack of sources for you today. We're looking at comprehensive encyclopedia entries, historical chart data, a ton of critical reception archives, and some incredibly detailed behind-the-scenes studio production notes.
Which are fascinating, by the way.
Oh, they're completely wild. And our mission for this deep dive is to figure out exactly how this happened, because an album doesn't just sell 40 million copies by accident.
No, it definitely does not.
It doesn't happen just because the songs are catchy.
Right. There has to be a mechanism behind it.
Exactly. So we aren't just going to look at the music, although the music is obviously brilliant. We're going to put the entire machine under a microscope.
I like that approach.
We're talking about the songwriting process, the highly controversial production choices, the completely unprecedented marketing strategy of genre hopping.
That part is so key.
Right, and the massive cultural shifts this record created.
Because when you really look at the raw data, when you see a certification like 20 times platinum.
Which is double diamond in the U.S. alone, by the way.
Exactly, double diamond. It just blows your mind. You look at those numbers and you have to ask, how did she actually pull this off? How do you conquer the globe like that?
It's mind-blowing.
And the thesis we're going to explore today is that Come On Over wasn't just a collection of hit songs. It was a calculated, brilliant disruption of the entire music industry.
A total disruption.
Shania Twain and her producer, Mutt Lange, completely rewrote the rules.
They really did.
They rewrote the rules regarding genre, regarding how you market a singular artist to a global audience, and even regarding how you present female empowerment in mainstream highly commercial music.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to truly appreciate the triumph of Come On Over, we kind of have to rewind a bit. We have to set the stage.
We do.
Let's go back to 1993. Shania Twain releases her eponymous debut studio album on Mercury Nashville Records.
Right.
And you might think, given her later success, that this debut was an out-of-the-gate smash. But it really wasn't.
Not at all.
It sold about 100,000 copies and peaked at number 67 on the U.S. Top Country Albums chart.
And to put that into context for the music business of the early 90s, that is a commercial failure.
Yeah, that's barely a blip.
Major labels in Nashville operated on a very high-volume, high-turnover model back then.
Yeah.
If your debut only moves 100,000 units, the label is already actively looking for your replacement.
Wow.
You are literally on the verge of being dropped.
So she's teetering on the edge of becoming a trivia question, just a one-and-done artist. But there was a saving grace, right?
Yes, there was.
She released a music video for the lead single, What Made You Say That? And that video, along with her very unique, expressive singing voice, caught the attention of someone completely outside the Nashville bubble.
Robert John Mutt Lange.
Mutt Lange.
Yes, and Mutt Lange's involvement is the catalyst for absolutely everything that followed.
It's huge.
At this point, in 1993, Mutt Lange was already a legendary record producer. But he wasn't known for country music.
Not even a little bit.
No.
Yeah.
He was known for crafting massive, stadium-shaking rock albums. I mean, he produced AC/DC's Back in Black.
Classic.
He produced Def Leppard's Hysteria. He was a global heavy hitter originally from Zambia, operating mostly out of Europe.
Right.
And yet, he sees this video of a struggling Canadian country singer and immediately recognizes a raw potential that the Nashville establishment was completely missing.
It's such a wild pairing. I mean, the guy who produced Pour Some Sugar on Me is calling up a country rookie.
It sounds like a joke, but it happened.
So they start collaborating, and initially it's just over long-distance phone calls.
Right, sending takes back and forth.
Yeah, they're bouncing songwriting ideas, seeing if there's any creative chemistry. Finally, they arranged to meet in person at the Nashville Fanfare Festival in June of 1993.
And for anyone who might not know, Fanfare, which is now known as CMA Fest, was the ultimate proving ground for country artists.
Oh, yeah. Grueling.
It's a massive, multi-day event where artists sit in booths for hours, signing autographs, shaking hands, and trying to build a grassroots fan base.
Yeah, it was exhausting, very unglamorous work.
Extremely. And right in the middle of that very traditional Nashville setting, Shania meets this reclusive rock producer.
And things move incredibly fast from there. I mean, by December of 1993, which is just 6 months after meeting in person, they aren't just songwriting partners anymore, they're married.
It's a whirlwind romance, absolutely. But professionally, it is the birth of one of the most formidable creative partnerships in music history.
Without a doubt.
They immediately lock in and get to work on her second album, The Woman in Me, which drops in 1995. And this is where we see the first major disruption of the Nashville system.
Because they completely break the conventional country music formula.
Exactly. Lange brings his rock sensibilities. They introduce this highly polished, rock-influenced country pop sound, and the result is just seismic.
It explodes. The Woman in Me goes on to sell over 10 million copies. It actually surpasses Patsy Cline's greatest hits from 1967 to become the best-selling female country album of all time.
10 million copies.
10 million. It produces 4 #1 singles. It wins Album of the Year at the Academy of Country Music Awards. It wins a Grammy.
She goes from an opening act on the verge of being dropped to the biggest sensation in country music literally overnight.
But here is where the story takes a fascinating and highly controversial turn. She has the biggest album in the genre. She is the reigning queen of country music.
Yes.
The traditional next step, the mandatory next step in the music industry playbook is that you go on a massive, grueling concert tour to capitalize on that momentum.
Of course. You get on a bus, you play 200 cities, and you cash in.
Right, because that's where the real money is made. But she doesn't do that. She flat out refuses to tour to support The Woman in Me.
Exactly. She just says no.
Wait, hold on. She has the biggest album in country music, and she just stays home.
Pretty much.
Wasn't her label absolutely furious? I mean, how do you even justify that to the executives who are paying your bills? Walking away from a 10 million selling album's tour revenue is a massive gamble.
It was an unprecedented gamble, and the industry backlash was severe. Nashville insiders were furious, but more than that, they were highly suspicious.
Suspicious how?
The speculation ran rampant that Shania was a manufactured artist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The rumor mill churned out stories that she was entirely a studio creation of Mutt Lange. They said her vocals were heavily manipulated and that she simply couldn't sing live.
That's brutal.
They genuinely thought she was hiding because she didn't have the actual talent to back up the studio polish.
So while she is sitting at home, the entire industry is essentially calling her a fraud. That has to be an incredible amount of psychological pressure.
It had to be.
But when you look at her actual reasoning, it wasn't about fear at all. It makes total sense for a visionary artist.
It really does. First, she cited a lack of logistical support from the label to put on the kind of massive theatrical show she envisioned.
She didn't want to just do the standard acoustic set.
Exactly. She didn't just want to stand in front of a microphone stand with an acoustic guitar. She wanted a true spectacle. And the label wasn't ready to fund that yet.
Makes sense.
Second, she only had 2 albums out. She felt she didn't have enough of her own powerful original music to fill out a 90-minute headlining set list.
Right, because the first album wasn't really a hit.
Right. And she explicitly said she refused to go out on stage and sing other people's cover songs just to kill time.
Which is such a flex, honestly. Just saying, no, I only want to play my hits and I don't have enough yet.
It is a massive flex. But the biggest reason, she wanted to retreat and focus entirely on writing songs for her next album.
She was looking ahead.
She realized that a grueling 2-year bus tour would completely drain her creative energy and distract her from improving her craft. She wanted to build a bulletproof catalog of hits before she ever stepped foot on a stage.
It's a profound display of delayed gratification. She absorbed the criticism, she ignored the pressure from executives to cash in immediately, and she just went to work.
Which brings us to the songwriting machine that would ultimately produce the masterpiece. Come on over.
And the songwriting process was completely unconventional because she was doing a massive amount of promotional press for The Woman in Me, and Mutt Lange had his own intense producing schedule with other artists.
Very busy guys.
Yeah, they couldn't just lock themselves in a cabin in the woods for 6 months to write.
No, they often wrote completely apart in entirely different locations and then amalgamated their parts later.
It's such a fragmented, almost modern way of working. Our sources note that Shania documented her ideas constantly. She carried recording devices with her absolutely everywhere she went.
Like a musical diary.
Yes, she had notebooks for lyrics, and she carried a small tape recorder or a mini disc player for capturing melodies.
It really echoes how modern artists today use the Voice Memos app on their phones to capture lightning in a bottle. Inspiration doesn't adhere to a studio schedule.
I love this specific detail from the sources. She said she would be driving to the grocery store, just doing a mundane errand, and a melody would hit her.
Out of nowhere.
Right, and if she had forgotten her tape deck in the car, she couldn't just write it down because it was a melody, not a lyric.
You can't write a tune on a napkin easily.
Exactly, so she would have to sing the melody out loud over and over again the entire drive home just so she wouldn't forget it, and then sprint into the house to record it.
That is dedication.
It really goes to show you that inspiration isn't this mystical thing that only happens in a multi-million-dollar studio. It happens in the produce aisle.
It really does. And the locations where this album was actually written reflect that chaotic, scattered schedule. For instance, the song You've Got Away was partly composed at the pop singer Michael Bolton's house in New Jersey, of all places.
Wait, Michael Bolton? How am I supposed to live without you, Michael Bolton?
The very same.
Yeah.
Lange was working on Bolton's 1995 Greatest Hits compilation at the time, so Shania was staying there, and she just kept writing.
That is wild.
It's an amazing piece of trivia that a foundational country pop classic was birthed in Michael Bolton's guest room.
I would never have guessed that. And speaking of how she gathered material, there's a great note in the sources from Shania's longtime friend, Helene Bolduc.
Oh, yes, about her observation skills.
Exactly. She observed that Shania was a perpetual watcher of people. She wouldn't just sit in a room trying to summon deep poetry. She would sit in public spaces and observe everyday human interactions.
Just listening to how people actually talk.
Yeah. She would write down snippets of dialogue in her notebook, and then later mine those notes for titles and concepts.
That observation from her friend is absolutely key to understanding the lyrical genius of Come On Over.
How so?
When you look at the landscape of 90s alternative rock, which was dominating the culture at the time, so much of it was about deep, dark, brooding confessions. Angst was the currency of the era.
Very true. Grunge was huge.
Exactly. But Shania and Mutt deliberately went the opposite direction. The goal, as Shania stated, was simply to entertain the listener.
They wanted it to be fun.
They wanted to create a conversational album. They deliberately incorporated common phrases, everyday language you'd use, chatting with a friend over coffee.
Hence the title, Come On Over.
Right.
Which, by the way, wasn't the original title. She originally wanted to call the album No Inhibitions.
That's a very different vibe.
It is. She realized Come On Over was so much more inviting. No inhibition sounds like a clinical psychology term, whereas come on over sounds like someone opening their front door and handing you a drink.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It sets a welcoming tone. And this conversational tone was heavily laced with humor and sass. Lange really encouraged this.
He was known for that, right?
Yes, as a producer, he was a master of the double entendre and playful phrasing. You can see this reflected in the track list itself. The song titles are full of exclamation points, puns, and brackets.
Man, I feel like a woman.
Exactly. It looked energetic before you even press play. But Shania provided the core perspective. She specifically wanted to write from a woman's point of view, expressing her own beliefs and attitudes, but always with a wink and a sense of humor.
Let's look at some specific examples of how they turned real life into these massive pop hooks. Take the song, You're Still the One.
A classic.
It sounds like a universal sweeping love song. You hear it at weddings all the time. But it was actually written as a direct, joyful rebuttal to all the critics and tabloids who said her marriage to Mutt Lange wouldn't last.
Ah, yes. The industry gossip.
The media was obsessed with their age difference and their disparate backgrounds, and they were constantly predicting an imminent divorce. So they took that industry gossip and turned it into an anthem.
They said, I bet they'll never make it, but just look at us holding on.
Exactly. It's the ultimate I told you so.
It's a brilliant way to address controversy without sounding bitter. You just make it a hit song.
Right, or consider the song When. Shania actually cited this track as her personal favorite lyric on the entire album.
That's an interesting choice.
It uses all these surreal metaphors of an idealistic, impossible world to describe a broken relationship. As she put it, the song was a clever way of saying when hell freezes over about getting back together with a bad ex without actually having to say the tired cliche out loud.
It's very smart, perceptive songwriting disguised as breezy, effortless pop music.
And as we move into the broader themes of the album, we see how they manage to balance these breezy, entertaining vibes with some surprisingly heavy topics. Let's talk about the romance first, because they really push the envelope there.
They certainly did.
From this moment on is undeniably one of the biggest ballads of the entire decade. But originally, Shania didn't even want to sing it.
That's right. She felt uncomfortable singing a massive, soaring power ballad. She actually wrote it, hoping to pitch it to a powerhouse vocalist like Celine Dion.
She didn't think she had the chops for it.
She thought her own voice was too understated for the sheer scale of the melody.
But Lange convinced her to record it herself. He knew her voice could carry the emotion. They ended up bringing in country singer Brian White to make it a duet, to give it that sweeping romantic dialogue feel.
And interestingly, White found the song extremely challenging vocally.
Really? A professional country singer struggled with it.
Yes, our sources note he really struggled in the studio because it pushed the boundaries of what a traditional country ballad was expected to be. It required a pop diva level of breath control and belting.
Wow. Now, beyond romance, Come On Over is heavily focused on women's experiences, female empowerment, and role reversal. And they tackle these themes with an infectious energy.
Man, I feel like a woman is the ultimate example of that.
It is pure hedonism. It's celebrating female liberty, dressing up, going out, and just having unapologetic fun. It became an instant cultural touchstone.
Then you have a track like, Honey, I'm Home. This is a brilliant narrative of role reversal.
I love the lyrics on this one.
It's sung from the perspective of a working woman coming home completely exhausted after a grueling day at her job, demanding that her partner rub her feet, get her a drink, and take care of her.
Several music critics in our sources actually compared its thematic impact to Dolly Parton's iconic anthem 9 to 5 from 1980.
It's an excellent comparison. Dolly's 9 to 5 was about acknowledging the woman in the workplace, fighting for basic respect in a corporate environment.
Right.
Honey, I'm Home, nearly 2 decades later, updates that conversation. It takes the working woman as a given and shifts the focus to domestic equity.
It's saying, I work just as hard as you do, so when I get home, I expect the same pampering that men have traditionally expected.
It's got a sharp social commentary wrapped up in a stadium rock stomp.
But they didn't just stick to fun role reversals and upbeat anthems. They tackled some deeply serious issues, but they did it through this unique lens of optimism.
Black Eyes, Blue Tears is a great example of that.
Yes, Black Eyes, Blue Tears is a song explicitly about domestic abuse. It's about a woman leaving a physically abusive relationship. But instead of focusing on the trauma or writing a slow, mournful dirge, the lyrics focus entirely on the empowerment of walking away.
Right. Shania associated the theme with the movie Thelma and Louise.
She stated she wanted to show that there is vibrant life after abuse, rather than just doom and destruction.
This raises an important question about how pop music functions. Can you tackle themes of abuse and bodily autonomy while still maintaining massive commercial viability?
Clearly, yes, you can, because another track on the album, If You Want to Touch Her, Ask, directly navigates the topic of sexual consent and respecting a woman's personal physical space.
Shania noted it was inspired by her own awkward adolescence and physical development, where she felt objectified.
But again, she framed it positively. Not as an angry lecture, but as an upbeat, practical guide for men on how to sensitively and respectfully approach a woman.
Now, regarding these themes, we have to mention how this album is viewed historically today. When you read the cultural retrospectives from modern journalists, it's really interesting to see how they view this album.
It really is. Critics from outlets like The Independent have frequently analyzed these tracks and pointed to songs like Black Eyes, Blue Tears, and If You Want to Touch Her, Ask, as highly relevant early precursors to the conversations we're having today about consent.
Yes, and looking at the source material, it's clear the critical consensus highlights these themes as pioneering for a female artist in the late 90s country music scene.
They've even gone so far as to call the album an overlooked feminist masterpiece.
And we should clarify, whether you view the album through a modern socio-political lens or just as straightforward, honest storytelling about the female experience, speaking so frankly about consent and surviving domestic abuse, was a major, undeniable disruption of the genre's norms at the time.
Absolutely. Country music traditionally leaned towards songs about standing by your man. Shania was writing songs about setting boundaries.
It's a huge shift.
It's absolutely fascinating how an album designed simply to entertain the listener ended up carrying so much thematic weight and holding up so well decades later.
But of course, the lyrics and the themes are only half the story.
Oh, yeah. The sound of this album, the absolute sonic sorcery that Mutt, Lange, and Shania cooked up in the studio, is where things get truly wild.
The recording process was incredibly meticulous. They officially started recording in late 1996, and Mutt Lange was obsessive about preparation.
Obsessive is the right word.
Before they even entered the physical studio space, he called session drummer Paul Lange. Lange played him every single song on the album, singing and playing guitar himself over the phone.
Over the phone.
Over the phone. He wanted the drummer to understand the exact vision and groove for every track before the tape ever rolled.
That is wild. They told the audio engineer Jeff Balding that they wanted a real fun Motown feel, and they discussed the musical direction endlessly.
The actual recording took place over 3 weeks at the Masterphonics tracking room in Nashville, and they were obsessive about the acoustics. Finding the right drum sound alone was a massive challenge.
Well, acoustic spaces drastically change how an instrument sounds. For the rock-heavy tracks, Paul Lange recorded the drums in a room with a solid stone floor and highly reflective rock walls.
And for anyone who isn't an audio engineer, hard surfaces like stone reflect sound waves rapidly, which creates a big, echoing, stadium-like sound. It makes the drums sound huge.
But for the ballads, he packed up his kit and moved to small, heavily padded dead booths.
Right.
These are small rooms lined with acoustic foam that absorbs sound, resulting in a very tight, dry, intimate sound that doesn't overpower the vocals.
And the gear they used was top of the line. The mixing was done by Mike Shipley on an SSL 9000J console.
Which is a crucial detail.
It really is. For those not familiar with studio gear, think of the SSL 9000J console as the absolute Ferrari of mixing desks in the 1990s.
The gold standard.
It was a massive, highly expensive, computerized piece of technology that gave pop, hip-hop, and rock records that incredibly punchy, crystal clear, larger-than-life sound.
Using an SSL desk of that magnitude for a country album was a huge statement. It signaled they were aiming for a sonic fidelity that rivaled Michael Jackson or Madonna.
And the musicianship on this album is top-tier Nashville session players. You have Joe Chimay on bass.
Including playing a fretless bass, which allowed him to slide between pitches smoothly.
You have Biff Watson on acoustic guitars. You even have Larry Byram, the former guitarist from the rock band Steppenwolf, playing slide guitar.
Steppenwolf, Magic Carpet Ride Steppenwolf playing on a Shania Twain record.
Exactly. But while Lange had a strict obsessive vision, he also allowed these seasoned musicians the freedom to add their own stylistic touches, which brought a really organic life to the tracks.
However, there were moments where Lange exerted total control to achieve a specific sound, and this brings us to one of the most fascinating production techniques on the album.
The fiddles.
Right. The fiddles. You cannot have a country album in 1997 without fiddles. It's the law.
It was basically a requirement for airplay.
But both Shania and Mutt felt that traditional fiddle playing just didn't sound big enough for the massive pop stadium sound they were building. The standard way to record a fiddle is to have one player, and maybe you record them a second time to double the track.
But Lange comes up with a trick.
Yes, the infamous Bo Bros technique.
He brought in 4 distinct, highly talented fiddle players: Rob Hajakos, Joe Spivey, Glenn Duncan, and Aubrey Haney.
But instead of having them play complex counter melodies or harmony parts like a standard string quartet, he had all 4 of them play the exact same part in perfect unison.
Which is incredibly difficult to do well.
Wait, but isn't that just a nightmare for mixing? Having 4 guys playing the exact same notes at the exact same time? Why not just have one guy play it and then copy and paste the audio track 4 times in the computer?
It's a great question. If you just copy and paste the exact same audio file, it doesn't sound bigger, it just gets louder.
Right.
And you can actually cause phase cancellation where frequencies cancel each other out.
Oh, I see.
But when you have 4 distinct physical instruments moving actual air in a room, you get micro variations. No 2 humans play with the exact same millisecond of timing or the exact same microscopic pitch.
That makes sense.
Those tiny organic imperfections blend together to create a naturally thick chorusing effect that you simply cannot replicate digitally.
That is fascinating, moving actual air in the room. And the mic placement was insanely precise to capture this.
Very precise.
Sometimes the microphones were placed just 6 to 8 inches from each fiddle to get the scrape of the bow. Other times, all four players stood in a tight semicircle around two Neumann KM 582 microphones.
And those Neumanns are highly sensitive vintage tube condenser microphones. They capture the warmth and the room ambiance perfectly.
The audio engineer noted that this unison playing, captured by those specific mics, created a massive, thick sound without making the track feel cluttered or muddy.
All of this technical obsessiveness, the SSL consoles, the reflective stone rooms, the four-man fiddle sections, was in service of a very specific goal, creating what critics would later call the illusion of genre.
The genre debate around this album is wild. If you ask a music historian to categorize Come On Over, they struggle.
Because it defies simple categorization.
Is it country? Is it pop? Is it arena rock? Is it adult contemporary? When you look at the track list and really listen to the production, it's actually all of those things operating simultaneously.
Shania herself described it as an upbeat album that equally combined country, pop, and rock.
Let's break down some of these tracks to see how they actually pulled off this genre blending, because it's brilliant. Let's start with the opener, man. Feel like a woman.
Perfect example.
You have Shania delivering the vocals with a distinct country twang. You can hear the Nashville in her voice.
But underneath that twang, you have synthesized strings and a heavy, fuzz-drenched electric guitar riff. Music journalists constantly compare that opening guitar riff to Norman Greenbaum's classic 1969 psychedelic rock song, Spirit in the Sky.
Exactly. Country voice, psychedelic rock guitar, pop synthesizers. It's a true hybrid.
Then you have Honey, I'm Home. The defining feature of this track is this massive, driving stomp clap rhythm.
Stomp, stomp, clap.
Right. Critics universally pointed out that this rhythm is a direct, undeniable mirror of Queen's stadium rock anthem, We Will Rock You. But instead of Brian May's guitar soaring over it, it's layered with bluesy fiddles and crying pedal steel.
Then they venture into entirely international sounds. I Won't Leave You. Lonely has a distinct European flavor. It features juxtaposed accordions and pedal steel, with verses actually sung in French and Spanish to broaden its global appeal.
And the rhythm guitar track. Critics noted its striking similarity to the tight, muted, reggae-influenced picking on The Police's 1983 hit, Every Breath You Take.
And what about the title track, Come On Over? It has this amazing, swampy Cajun sound driven by mandolin and accordion, but the rhythmic foundation of the song is an electronic Caribbean beat.
It's a melting pot.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Rock This Country is basically an 80s arena rock song, complete with power chords and pounding, aggressive drums, just with a frantic fiddle solo thrown in the middle.
What Allison Hussey of Pitchfork so brilliantly pointed out in our sources is that the fiddles are the key element. They are the anchor transmitting the album's country core.
As long as the fiddle is there, country radio feels safe.
Exactly. But the smeared edges of Lange's production master this illusion. They crafted songs that had enough twang for country radio, enough melodic hook for pop radio, and enough rhythmic drive for rock radio.
It made the album palatable to almost any listener anywhere in the world.
Which brings us to perhaps the most brilliant part of this entire story, the masterclass in marketing, the crossover strategy.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Because recording a genre-bending album is an artistic achievement, certainly. But selling 40 million copies of it, that requires a strategic rollout, unlike anything the music industry had ever seen.
The disruption started with the tracklist itself. In 1997, the standard rule for a country album was strictly 10 to 12 tracks, running maybe 35 to 40 minutes tops.
It was an efficiency model. Get in, give them a couple of hits, get out.
Come on. Over completely shattered that expectation. It featured 16 tracks and ran for over 60 minutes. It was a massive, sprawling piece of work.
And they didn't just put 16 songs on there as filler to justify the CD price. Out of those 16 tracks, Mercury Records released an unbelievable 12 of them as singles.
12 singles from one album.
Think about that for a second. That means they were actively promoting this exact same record on the radio for nearly 3 solid years.
It's unheard of today.
Imagine it's late 1997. You hear the first single. Now it's the summer of 1998. Another single drops. Now it's the end of 1999. You are 2 years older. Your life has changed. And they are still releasing brand new hit singles from the exact same album you bought 2 years ago.
It's an incredible life cycle for a piece of media. But the absolute genius was where and when they promoted those singles. They utilized a staggering highly disciplined pop crossover strategy in North America.
How did that work exactly?
When the album launched, they did not send the music to pop radio immediately. They resisted the urge. The first two singles, Love Gets Me Every Time and Don't Be Stupid, were sent only to country radio stations.
Why did they do that? If it's a pop album, why hide it from pop radio?
Because they had to prove her loyalty to the country base first. Remember the backlash about her not touring? The accusations that she was a fake?
Oh, right. They had to win back the Nashville purists.
If she had come back with a massive pop single out of the gate, country radio would have banished her forever. She would have been seen as a traitor. They had to assure the Nashville establishment that she was still a country girl at heart.
And it worked. Love Gets Me. Every time I spent 5 weeks at #1 on the country charts.
So once the country base is locked in and the album is a certified country smash, then they execute the crossover.
I see.
In January 1998, once she was secure on the country charts, they finally released You're Still the One to U.S. pop radio. And because the country foundation was so solid, the pop stations embraced it and the country stations didn't feel abandoned.
It hit #2 on the Billboard Hot 100.
They repeated this double-dipping strategy over and over. Songs like From This Moment On were serviced to country radio in May and then pushed to pop stations months later in August. They effectively squeezed 2 distinct lifespans out of every single song.
But if you think that's impressive, we have to talk about the international remixes. Because this right here is the ultimate genius move. This is how you reach 40 million.
It's a phenomenal strategy.
When the North American album was finished and shipped to stores, Mutt Lange didn't take a vacation, he didn't celebrate, he went right back into the studio and spent 4 additional months completely remixing 15 of the 16 tracks for the international release, which came out in Europe in February 1998.
He fundamentally altered the sonic architecture of the album for the global market.
Right.
He knew the cultural context of the international audiences. Pedal steel guitars and aggressive sawing fiddles simply didn't historically sell well in Europe or Asia.
No, they don't.
To a listener in London or Tokyo, a pedal steel doesn't sound like a cool sonic texture. It sounds intensely hyper-localized to the American South. It's a barrier to entry.
So what does he do? He painstakingly strips out those country elements. He mutes the fiddle tracks. He makes the snare drums more subtle. He replaces the acoustic twang with driving pop beats, synthesized drum loops, keyboards, and lush pop synthesizers.
He effectively erases the country DNA. The only song he left completely untouched was Rock This Country.
So if you bought the album in a record store in North America, you got a country pop record. If you bought it in the UK, Ireland, or Australia, you got a straight-up global pop record.
Think about that. Think about the version of these songs that you remember hearing on the radio. If you grew up in London, the song in your head sounds completely different than if you grew up in Texas.
Lange literally manipulated our musical memories based on our zip codes.
And they even changed the visual branding to match the sonic vibe. The original North American album cover features Shania in a casual red shirt with a very direct come-hither pose. Very classic, approachable country aesthetic.
But the international cover, completely different photo shoot.
Entirely different.
It features her with windswept, tousled hair, wearing a sleek, sleeveless silver gown, turning toward the camera with a much more high-fashion, icy pop diva aesthetic. They sold 2 completely different versions of Shania Twain to the world simultaneously.
The success of this dual-release strategy simply cannot be overstated. By tailoring the instrumentation to regional tastes, while keeping the core universal melodies and her pristine vocals intact, they conquered the globe.
And they didn't stop tweaking it.
No, they kept going.
In February 1999, recognizing the booming club scene, they released a specific dance remix of That Don't Impress Me Much to pop stations.
Oh, that dance remix is legendary. You couldn't go to a wedding, a club, or a grocery store without hearing it. It absolutely conquered the world.
It hit #1 in Ireland, New Zealand, and Norway, and went top 10 in the UK, Germany, Australia, and the US.
Eventually, the demand for these pop and dance remixes was so unbelievably high in America that Mercury Records actually released the international pop version of the album in the US in November 1999.
That is 2 full years after the original release. People were literally going to the store, buying the album twice just to get the different mixes.
It was an absolute masterclass in extending an album's life cycle and maximizing revenue. And to bring this entire massive story full circle, we have to talk about the tour. Remember back in 1995, the entire industry doubted she could perform live. They said she was a studio fake, hiding behind Mutt Lange's mixing desk.
Well, from May 1998 to December 1999, Shania embarked on the Come On Over tour. It was her first tour as a headliner.
And the pressure must have been immense. If she cracked on the first note, the critics would have ended her career right there.
But she just obliterated them. She played 165 shows across North America, Australia, Ireland, and the UK. The tour grossed over $70 million.
Massive numbers.
The reviews praised her incredible vocal stamina, her energetic performances, and the massive theatrical production value she had always envisioned. She completely vindicated herself. She proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that she was a powerhouse live performer.
The tour was a multimedia spectacle. She didn't just play arenas, she dominated the airwaves. She had a live broadcast on DirecTV from Dallas. She had a primetime CBS TV special.
And she brought out massive, globally recognized guest stars. Elton John joined her on stage in Miami to sing a medley of You're Still the One and his hit Something About the Way You Look Tonight.
The Backstreet Boys, who were arguably the biggest pop group on the planet at the time, came out to sing from this moment on.
It cemented her status not just as a country star who got lucky, but as a bona fide global pop icon playing on the same level as Elton John.
And the sales numbers reflect that relentless, unstoppable momentum. Now, I have to ask you, because I love this piece of trivia. When Come On Over debuted in November 1997, did it debut at #1 on the Billboard 200?
Actually, no. In a crazy piece of late 90s trivia, it debuted at #2, selling 172,000 copies in its first week. She was beaten out for the #1 spot by a margin of just 3,000 copies.
And the artist who beat her?
The rapper Mace, with his debut album Harlem World.
It's so funny to look back at chart history like that.
It really is. But while most albums drop off significantly after week 1, Come On Over defied the laws of gravity. It held on. It sold another 170,000 copies in week 2.
And because of that relentless release of 12 singles, the international remixes, the dance mixes, and the massive tour, the album's highest sales week didn't happen in 1997.
It didn't happen in 1998 either.
The highest sales week for this album happened during Christmas week of 1999, 2 full years after it was initially released, when it sold 355,000 copies in a single week.
That is simply unheard of chart longevity. Albums just do not peak 2 years into their cycle. It spent a staggering 50 weeks at #1 on the U.S. Top Country Albums chart.
It was certified 20 times platinum in the U.S. The Guinness World Records officially recognized it as the biggest-selling studio album by a female solo artist in history.
If we pull back and look at the macro view, the true legacy of Come On Over is that it fundamentally revolutionized country music.
It really did. Before Shania Twain, attempting to cross over to pop was largely viewed as an act of betrayal in Nashville. The industry was highly protective of its borders.
But after Come On Over, crossing over became the gold standard. She proved that you didn't have to be confined by strict, arbitrary genre boundaries to be authentic.
Exactly. You could draw a direct, undeniable lineage from Shania to the massive, modern country pop stars of today. Think about Taylor Swift. Swift actually publicly thanked Shania on TikTok for eradicating the misconception that country girls can't go to pop.
Think about Carrie Underwood, Maren Morris, Kelsey Ballerini. Shania's fearless genre blending took the arrows so that the next generation could walk through the doors she kicked down.
And it wasn't just a sonic revolution, it was visual. Shania's music videos were high-budget, highly choreographed, glamorous, and vibrant.
As our sources note, her visual presentation benefited from heavy airplay on CMT, MTV, and VH1s simultaneously. She conveyed a powerful visual message that country music didn't have to look like just one thing.
It didn't have to be just dusty boots, denim, and pickup trucks. It could be high fashion, leopard print, and global glamour.
So to summarize the findings of this deep dive, Come On Over was a perfect storm. It was a monumental achievement in balancing pure artistic vision with shrewd commercial reality.
Shania and Mutt Lange understood their core audience deeply, but they also possessed the unparalleled genius to expand that audience globally without losing the emotional core of the songs.
Absolutely. It was the combination of brilliant, relatable, everyday songwriting captured on a mini disc in a grocery store parking lot.
It was the result of meticulous, obsessive recording techniques in expensive studios.
It was fearless boundary pushing in a genre that hated change. And it was powered by a completely unprecedented marketing strategy of releasing dual sonic versions to different continents.
The next time you hear a country song with a heavy pop beat on the radio, Or you see an artist seamlessly crossing genres and changing their aesthetic for different markets. Just remember, you are listening to the shockwaves of Shania Twain and Mutt Lange's 1997 experiment. They built the blueprint.
But diving into the mechanics of this 40 million selling juggernaut does leave us with a fascinating philosophical puzzle to consider.
What's that?
When we talk about music and integrity, we often equate authenticity with an artist sticking strictly to a single traditional genre. We expect them to play the same acoustic instruments regardless of who is in the audience.
Right, there's this idea that keeping it pure to the original sound is the only way to be a real artist.
Exactly. But if Shania Twain changed the literal instrumentation of her songs, swapping her fiddles for synthesizers and her steel guitars for drum loops, just to sell records to different audiences in Europe and Asia, does that make the music less authentic?
Or is the ultimate form of artistic integrity actually found in breaking down those genre borders entirely?
Is true authenticity found in adapting the sonic packaging so that the core emotional message of the song can be understood and felt by as many human beings as possible, regardless of where they live?
That is a brilliant question to chew on. Is authenticity found in the wooden instrument you play, or in the genuine connection you make with the listener on the other end of the speaker?
Something to think about the next time you put on You're Still the One. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into Come On Over. We'll see you next time.